Now, the various forms of data presentation that we'll be looking at, we have the bar chart, a pie chart, a histogram, frequency polygon, cumulative frequency curve, and the Lorentz curve. Now we're going to these forms of data presentation in detail, so I'll not be going into details over here. Now, the first form that we'll be looking at is what we call a bar chart, all right, which most of us are familiar with and already know. So we have a data given over here, which will be presenting a bar chart on, all right. So we have the data on the 20 courses taken by a student, right? And on the 20 courses, we have the various grades that the students have, and we are required to develop bar charts for her grade points, all right. Now we have, so this is the solution, but what we are going to do is that we are going to leverage on Excel to be able to at least learn from the two sides, and also learn how we can also be presenting such data in Excel. All right, so I open my Excel. All right, so I have this over here. So this is the first illustration that we'll be looking at. All right, now I have the various grades over here, A, B, and C. So the frequencies, to get the frequency, I'll count the number of A's, and I'll do same for the other ones. All right, so I'll use my count if formula. So I'll select the range. I'll select my range, then my criteria is A. All right, so I have 4 A's, I have 9 B's and 2 C's. Now compute mine. Let me see my total. 15. Okay, so we can compare it to see. Oh, 20. So let me look at it. All right, so what we are going to do is that we have to lock the range using F4. All right. Okay, so now we have our total. Now, to be able to draft bar charts, we have to select this. Then we can come to insert or click on this over here. Can come to more. So I have my bar chart over here. All right. So this is a nice bar chart that has been designed for me for grade A, for grade B, and grade C. All right. So that's how we draft our bar charts. Now, so for a bar chart, the difference is that you can see that over here we are getting the same bar chart over here. So the height of the bar that we are seeing over here gives information about the frequency. All right, so the higher the bar, it means that the frequency of that grade is higher. All right, so just from this picture or this bar chart over here, we can be able to make informed decision that okay, the highest grade coming from the 20 courses is B, right? So it's 11 B's. Then the next one is the 4 A's followed by the 5 C's. All right, so that's it with the bar chart, or how to present data in a bar chart in Excel. Now we move on to the next one, which is a pie chart. Now with a pie chart, the pie chart is also a graphical design for presenting data by dividing the circle into sectors that correspond to the relative frequency of each class. All right, so we've also been given this example over here to present a pie chart for the frequency distribution over here. Now to do so, I think we already have our data here in Excel. All right, so we have our data here. All right, so this is the one that we're working on for the pie chart. Now with this, we can go ahead and compute the proportion of 360 degrees. All right, but in Excel, even with that, it's not that necessary, because we can still go ahead and compute our pie chart with just these data given over here. All right, however, we can also, for the sake of learning, we can also compute the various proportion of the 360 degrees. So first we compute our total, so alt equal to, right, which is 24, and then we can put in a formula to compute the percentage of, or the proportion of the 360 degrees, which will be equal to the frequency of A divided by the total frequency. Then I hit F4 to lock it, then divided by 360 degrees, and I hit enter. Let me see. Oh, sorry, times 360. Alright, that's giving me 60 degrees. Then I can come down for the rest. So you can see that if I add everything, it should give me 360 degrees. Okay, so that's how you go about with the proportions. Now I can use the grade and the frequency to compute my pie chart. Now this time I'll come to insert over here, then I come to chart, so recommended charts, and I have my pie chart over here. So this is a 2D pie chart, but I prefer the 3D pie chart, so I come to pie and select a 3D pie chart, and I hit OK. Alright, so this is how we can also go about it, presenting data in pie charts. Now what we can also do is that we can go ahead and call out the various proportions of the data out. Okay, so for example, I can come here and let me see, add the data labels, right? So I can see the various frequencies. So in situations whereby we use the proportion, we'll be seeing that over there, or when it comes to, let's say, percentages too, we can see that over there. So I can bring it out or call it out like this. So this one even showed percentages out of, let's say, 100%. all right, okay, so we move on to the next one. So as you can see over here, this is a manual way of computing the proportion, the 360 degree proportion. Okay, but Excel makes everything very simple and fast when you are working around it. Now the next chart that we'll be looking at is the histogram. Now when we talk of a histogram, let's say the brother is, or let's say the sister the sister will be a bar chart. The only difference is that when we look at a bar chart and a pie chart, sorry, a bar chart and a histogram, the bar chart has spaces between each of the bars representing the frequencies, but for that of the histogram, everything is attached to each other. All the bars are attached to each other, all right, forming a solid diagram, or let's say a solid figure on the axis. Okay, so as you can see over here, it's a graphical method of presenting a frequency or relative frequency distribution of quantitative data. The histogram is a graph that uses continuous vertical bars to display the frequency of data. So with these ones, it uses continuous vertical bars, meaning there are no spaces between the bars which represent the frequencies. So we've been given this data over here. All right, we have the class limit and the number of states. Now in presenting data in a histogram, okay, what we'll do is that we've been given the number of states, which is the frequencies, and the class limit. We can either go ahead and use the upper limit and the lower limit, or use the midpoint in drafting or in presenting data in a histogram. Okay, now from the class limit, we can go ahead and pull out our lower limit. We can also go ahead and pull out our upper limit. All right, so our lower limit will be 100. Okay, so in pulling that out, I can use the left function. Okay, I can use the left function. Let me see the text. 3. Oh, let me see. Sorry, so the number of characters I want to pull out is 3. So I can see my lower limit is here. Then I can do same for my upper limit. This time I will use the right function. So that one, so I want to pull out 3 figures. I didn't select my text. Okay, now we know how to compute the midpoint. So the midpoint is the upper limit, so the upper limit plus the lower limit divided by 2. Okay, all right, so this gives me my midpoint. Okay, so I have my midpoint for the data. Okay, so let me look at this. Divided by C26. All right, so I have my midpoint. Okay, now to be able to draft my histogram, I'll be using the midpoint and the number of dates. All right, so let me compare. Okay, it's the same. So I'll select the data that I want to present the histogram, and I'll come to my chart. Now over here you can see that we have a histogram over here. All right, but this is not what we want, or this is not what we are dealing with. So what you do is that you come to columns and select a bar chart. Let me see, where is it? All right, so you select a bar chart. All right, now this is not a histogram, this is a bar chart. So what we can do to turn this into a histogram is that we can expand the width of the bars. All right, and we can do so by right clicking and coming to format chart area. All right, then we select the bars, then we can reduce the gap width, all right, to 0. All right, and we have a nice histogram presented over here. All right, so it has the continuous vertical bars, as you can see over here. All right, so this is how we present a histogram. Okay, so a histogram. All right, so from this histogram you can see that from this raw data it will take some time before we can even go through the data and say that okay, the highest class limit is, or let's say the higher class limit is 130 to 134. All right, but with the histogram we can see that the one with the highest bar, right, which is 18, which goes to the 110 to 114 class limits, right, with a midpoint of 16.7. okay, so this one gives us a very clear picture of what the data looks like. Okay, now the next one that we'll be looking at, so the next one that we are looking at will be our frequency polygon. Right, now I think with a frequency polygon, okay, it's a graph that displays data, so it uses lines. All right, it's like a line chart, or it uses line to connect points plotted for the frequencies at the midpoint of the classes. So with these ones we use the midpoints and the frequencies to plot a graph, right? So after plotting the points, then we draw a line through it. All right, so just like it's done over here. All right, so this is a frequency polygon. All right, so first you have to compute the midpoint. So the midpoint is the upper class boundary plus the lower class boundary divided by 2. All right, and this is how it looks like. So to be able to draft it, we'll be using this same data. Okay, we'll be using this same data. Now with this, what we are going to do is that we select the data. All right, then we come to our chart. Now over here what we are looking at is that we are looking at good. So what we are looking at is something like this. Okay, so just like I mentioned, with the frequency polygons, we pick the midpoint of the class, then we plot lines. So we plot the points. All right, we plot the point. Now after we are done, then we draw a line through it. So we draw a line through it, something like this. Okay, to represent a frequency polygon. So that's what we are going to do. So I'll come to my chart. So as you can see over here, okay, so you can see like just like the first one that I presented the points. Okay, just like the first one that I presented the point. So let me just put that one up. Where the scatter. Good. So you can see, comparing these two, you can see that this one shows only the plotted points without the lines. All right, so if you are doing it manually, let's say on a graph sheet, you plot your points, then after plotting this, you draw a line through it to get something like this for a frequency polygon. Okay, for a frequency polygon. Now with a frequency polygon, what it does is that it's a graph. Okay, so it's a graph that helps us to represent data, or let's say to represent the distribution of the data. Okay, now what it does is that one, it shows the distribution of the data, then two, it helps in comparison of two or more data sets. All right, so multiple frequency polygons can be drawn on the same graph to easily compare two or more distributions. It also helps us to identify patterns and trends within the data. Okay, so mostly what it does is that it makes it easy to see the peaks. So when it comes to the peaks, it helps us to determine the symmetry, it helps us to determine the skewness. Let's say it also helps us to how do you call it, know the shape of the distribution. Okay, whether it's a bell shape, it's skewed to the left or skewed to the right. Okay, so those are some of the uses of the frequency polygons. Now in data analysis, or let's say in quantitative methods also, what one good thing it does is that it's very useful in probability, statistics and research, especially when we are analyzing the frequency distribution. Okay, and when it comes to frequency distribution, we can also look at income distribution among a population. Okay, so that's what the frequency polygon also does.